We all knew that this was going to be a major affair, the funeral services for Pope Francis. We knew world leaders would be in attendance. We didn't know that we would be seeing a one-on-one between Trump and Zelensky, though.
All right, you better grab your popcorn, because what just went down at Pope Francis's funeral might end up shaping global history, and no, that's not an exaggeration. On April 26, 2025, as more than 250,000 mourners filled St. Peter's Basilica to pay their respects to Pope Francis, two very familiar faces slipped into a private meeting behind the towering Vatican walls, President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Yeah, you heard that right. Trump and Zelensky, the same duo whose names once set Washington on fire, met face-to-face for the first time since their fiery February dust-up. According to Time and NPR, they had a closed-door conversation lasting around 15 minutes, and depending on who you ask, it could be a game-changer. Both leaders came out calling the discussion very productive. Zelensky, speaking to reporters later, said, hoping for results on everything we covered, protecting lives of our people, full and unconditional ceasefire, reliable and lasting peace that will prevent another war from breaking out. In other words, no big deal, just casually trying to end a brutal war over coffee and cannabis. Meanwhile, President Trump took to Truth Social and in true Trumpian fashion, didn't mince words. He slammed recent Russian missile strikes on civilian areas and openly questioned whether Vladimir Putin was actually serious about ending the conflict. Trump teased the idea of banking and secondary sanctions, hinting that if Putin keeps playing games, the gloves could come off economically. Now, was this meeting scheduled? Nope. It was apparently a spur-of-the-moment decision, spurred by the significance of the funeral. CBS News reports that aides scrambled to organize a few private minutes between the two, knowing full well the symbolic weight it would carry. And symbolic it was. Just picture it, world leaders from every corner of the globe gathered under the massive dome of St. Peter's Basilica, putting aside years of political mudslinging to honor a man who spent his papacy preaching unity and peace. The Washington Post even pointed out how rare it was to see President Trump, President Biden, President Zelensky, and President Macron all in the same sacred space, honoring the same legacy. It was basically the Met Gala for geopolitics, only with fewer sequins and way more black suits. But here's the kicker, this meeting might signal something bigger than just polite small talk. Analysts from The Guardian are already buzzing about potential shifts in U.S. foreign policy, especially regarding the Ukraine conflict. Could this be the start of a new strategy, a ceasefire, maybe even, dare we say it, peace? Of course, it wouldn't be a Trump appearance without some controversy brewing in the background. During the funeral, seating arrangements had the internet in a tizzy. President Trump and First Lady Melania were seated prominently, with former President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden just a few rows away. People on X, formerly Twitter, had a field day dissecting every glance and head nod. Was it awkward? Frosty? Who knows, but it was must-watch global TV. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the Vatican itself was dealing with a mess of its own. As AP News reports, Pope Francis's death sparked not just mourning, but a political and legal firestorm. In the days following his passing, convicted financier Raphael Mincioni accused the late Pontiff of interfering in his £300 million fraud trial, claiming Pope Francis influenced a key witness. Legal teams have filed complaints with the United Nations, alleging evidence manipulation. Casual, right? And just when you thought it couldn't get more chaotic, Cardinal Angelo Becciu himself, convicted in connection to that very financial scandal, bowed out of the upcoming conclave after receiving a letter from Pope Francis before his death, politely telling him to stay home. Oh, and speaking of the conclave, it's gearing up to be the largest in Catholic Church history. 135 eligible cardinals will enter the Sistine Chapel on May 7, 2025, to pick the next leader of 1.3 billion Catholics. And insiders from Reuters say don't hold your breath for a dramatic conservative swing. The Vatican isn't exactly prepping for a hardcore pivot. In a lighter tribute, the world-famous Giro d'Italia bike race will honor Pope Francis in its final stage. Cyclists will start inside Vatican City itself, winding through the Vatican Gardens and past Casa Santa Marta, where Francis lived, a move reported by Reuters as a symbolic ride for a symbolic man. And if that's not enough pop culture for you, the film Conclave, starring Ralph Fiennes and Stanley Tucci, has seen a 283% surge in streaming since Francis's death, according to The Guardian. Vatican. Apparently, when the real-life Vatican turns into a Dan Brown novel, everyone wants a front row seat. But back to our main event. Trump and Zelensky. Their unexpected Vatican meeting isn't just a blip on the diplomatic radar, it could be the first domino in a very big chain reaction. Whether it leads to real peace talks, tougher sanctions, or simply adds more fuel to the already raging geopolitical fire, one thing's for sure, history books are going to love this week. So what do you think? Is this the moment that changes everything? Drop your wildest theories down below, and hey, if you want to stay on top of global drama that's somehow bigger than Game of Thrones, smash that like button and subscribe. You won't want to miss what comes next.